All right, so now we've switched over into the Mac and MonoDevelop. So let's take a look at our application. Let's just go and run it. Get some running, so let's start without debugging. Okay, so you can see it. It's going to come up here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit the Twitter button, and then boom, you can see I've got literally the composite view controller. It comes up. I could go ahead and say add my location. You can see where I'm at, and I'll go ahead and I'll post this. And so boom, there it goes. Notice that I got the message of done here. And so now let's just take a look at this in code. So first off, just to show you everything, this is our zib. You'll also notice that I've got my wally.jpg there. That's just a image that I'm showing that's in my project. You could obviously pull images from wherever you can access them. Here's my 3 buttons, and then here's my label, and I've got the various outlets set up for them. Let's go ahead, we'll close this up. Then we're going to go in and we're going to look at the code, and here's the code right here. Okay, so I check, I see if I've got, is the SL service kind Twitter available? Okay, that's what I'm doing. If it is available, then I'm going to go ahead, I will create my SL composer, okay, and then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to set up a couple of items. I could also set up a URL, okay, so I can do that. Then my next piece is I need to go and present that to the user, okay, so that's what I'm doing here. Then I mentioned the completion handler, okay, so when the controller is, when the value is either sent or when it's canceled, the completion handler fires, and I'm going to output to the label, okay, to the UI label. Now notice here this is running on a background thread, okay, because remember we're doing everything asynchronous. All right, so we've got to say, go ahead and say invoke on main thread or begin invoke on main thread, something like that. Then that's how we can go ahead and dismiss the controller that's displayed and then write to the label. All right, so that's the simple way to go out and interface with Twitter via iOS 6. In this course, we're going to talk about the various improvements that are built into iOS 6 for social networks. So first off, we've got Twitter, and Twitter's actually, it's already there. I mean, that was there with iOS 5. Facebook, so that we can send updates to various user IDs, our accounts in Facebook, which is clearly the most popular social network. For those who are worried about the Asian Pacific Rim area, there's Weibo support. And then there's not technically a social network improvement, but I want to go ahead and mention it in this section. And that's going to be a new control, UI Activity View Controller, which is going to allow us to send data out to applications which support certain items. Okay? So let's talk for a minute just about social networks and what's happening there. And basically, you know, social networks are mechanisms for users, for regular people, to connect and communicate with their friends. There are various social networks out there. There's clearly the behemoth of the group, Facebook, with 900 million, or I think I've heard actually to this point, late 2012, up to 1 billion users. There's Twitter, which is the microblogging service, very popular. And then for those in that Asian Pacific Rim area, there's the Weibo network. It's another one of these microblogging services. And then there's kind of a problem with all these, though, and that's that each one of them has their own API. So we as developers We want things to be rather consistent, okay? We want to go and do a post to Facebook. We want to go do a post to Twitter. We want to do a post to Weibo. We would like that code to be, as pretty consistent as possible. So that's the problem we have. Each one of these has their own API, and these APIs can be consumed over HTTP and over the network and web and all that. But, at the end of the day, they have their own APIs. And so that means we've got to go out and we've got to build support in for them. So what we want is we want the operating system that we run on to provide as much support as possible. And thankfully, that's what's happened with iOS 6. We've got our support for Facebook. We've got our support for Twitter. We've got support for Weibo. So we can go hit these social networks with pretty much the same API. And we'll see what that looks like here in a moment. All right, so first off, to connect up, you're going to have a Twitter account set up, and that means you'll have to have a user ID and password. Now, those are clearly going to be your own, but you're also going to have this set up inside of, your device. And here you can see we've got a picture, and you can see that I've got my account set up. And this is specifically with the emulator that is running on my actual Mac development system. I've also got this set up inside of my iPhone and my iPad and all that. If you don't have anything set up, the first time you run through the code that I'm going to show here in a moment, you'll actually get taken to the account settings to set this up. Now, how are we going to go and actually send tweets? Okay, and we're going to assume, of course, that an account is configured. And thankfully, there's a new controller that we've got, and that's the SL Composite View controller. And that's included in the iOS 6 social framework. And that's basically, it's going to present a system that we can use for editing and, sending a tweet out. We'll need to understand this thing called a service type. It's just an enum for us. So, we'll use that for Weibo or Facebook or Twitter so that we tell the system this is the network that we're going to use. And then some of the methods that you'll want to be aware of, there'll be things like set the initial text. What's the initial text that the user is going to have when this controller pops up? There'll be an add URL method so that we could add URLs that'll end up being clickable links. And then we can also add images so that, say for Twitter, that's going to be uploaded with the tweet. Okay? And then one other thing, for this API that's exposed via the social framework, it's going to require user interaction. So developers, you can't have code that will, post on its own. Okay? And here is what the post is going to look like. And this is just a test post that I've got. It's got some initial text that's set up. It's got a picture of mine that'll be sent. Now, other things to pay attention to, there's a completion handler. Okay? So that's going to handle our result. We can get information back like, okay, this has been sent or this has been canceled. So we know what's happened. And then also, once again, things have got to be dismissed. Okay? Other things that we can do, we can call the Twitter API. You've probably seen, some of my other examples where I go out and I call the Twitter search API on my own. I can do that here. It's actually a little bit simpler and easier. It's going to be asynchronous for us, which is good because we always want to be asynchronous on the device. We want to be a good citizen on the device. So when we're asynchronous, we're not hogging that UI thread. Okay, and we're not hogging the UI thread. Our application is going to be killed because of that. Okay, and then one other thing that we got to remember is this is not going to be portable code. Okay, what I mean by that, obviously this is going to run on iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, but it's not going to be portable. Okay, so if we write something using the Twitter API that is exposed in the social framework of iOS 6, we can't go run this in Android or some other device with, like, say, the Mono for Android. So now I want to show calling the Twitter API in a slightly different way. Let's go ahead. I've got another project open here, and let's go ahead and we're just going to run this. All right. So we'll run this. It will pop up and it'll go ahead and it'll do a search for us. All right. And in this case, it's just going to go and it's going to do a search on MonoTouch against the Twitter API. Now, go and let's bring this up and look at this in code. Okay. And here's the pieces that are of importance. Okay. Once again, I see if I've got access to a Twitter service. Okay. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to make a request. Okay. And here's where my request is. Notice that I'm just calling out to the Twitter search API and doing a query on MonoTouch. And then here's the important part of my result. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is when the result comes back, first thing I'm going to do, did I get a good result? Okay. And this is the HTTP code 200. Was this a good result? And if it was, then I'm going to take the data that I brought back, convert to list. Convert literally just takes the string data that comes back and converts that into a tweet object. I'll show you that here in a second. And then I'm going to do standard things. Okay. I'm going to create a UI table view data source. Okay. And then I'm going to bind that data in and then I'm going to load it. Okay. And notice that because I'm doing this all asynchronously, I'm calling invoke on main thread. Okay. Now, just to clear up any possible confusion on the convert to list, that's actually a method that I've created. Okay. And it's up here. And all this does, it takes the string input and uses link to XML. Okay. So I load the data via parse command on X document. And then boom, I'm going to go and I'm going to do a query. Okay. So this is all fairly simple. And then I just return that data. And if you'll notice, really the only thing that's different between this and all the other asynchronous operations that I've done is how I'm actually going out and doing this. Okay. Previously, I've been doing this with .NET specific APIs. Okay. So it requires a little bit more coding up front, but I'm also portable. So this is just another way to do that. This is going to go through native iOS APIs. So I would expect just the tiniest bit of performance improvement. However, the other problem, the thing is, I wouldn't expect this code to be portable. Okay, so good parts, bad parts. Obviously, if something's built in, you want to try and use it as best you can.